So in the B2B world, systems are constantly talking to each other. It's how business gets done. But how they talk? Well, that changes everything. Is it a quick back-and-forth chat in real time? Or is it more like sending a message and getting a reply later? Today, we're diving deep into that choice, the critical decision between synchronous and asynchronous communication. Let's get into it.
You can think of every B2B integration as a kind of digital handshake. But we're not talking about a friendly greeting here. No, these are high-stakes handshakes where millions of dollars, essential inventory, and maybe even your company's reputation are all on the line. We're going to follow one of these transactions to see exactly why the style of communication matters so much.
Okay, imagine this. A purchase order for $1 million just landed in your system. That's a huge win, right? But what happens in those first few seconds? Does your system need to check every single detail right away? Does it kick off a massive, complex fulfillment process? The answer to all of that really depends on the architectural patterns you've chosen. This one event kicks off a whole chain reaction that can honestly make or break the entire deal. To really get our heads around these technical patterns, we're going to use a really simple but powerful analogy. When one of your systems makes a request to another, is it making a phone call or is it sending an email? Seriously, that simple question is the key to unlocking the huge difference between synchronous and asynchronous APIs.
So here's how it breaks down. A synchronous call? That's your phone call. You dial the number, you wait for them to pick up, and you hold the line until you get your answer. It's immediate, sure, but it's also blocking. You literally can't do anything else while you're waiting. Now, an asynchronous call, that's like sending an email. You write it, you hit send, and you're done. You can move on to a dozen other things. The response will get there when it gets there, and you aren't stuck waiting by the phone.
All right, let's put a more official name on it. Synchronous communication is a real-time blocking method, and that word blocking is absolutely crucial. The client, that's the system making the request, sends out its message, and then it just waits. It's completely stuck. It can't move on to the next task until the server on the other end gives it a full response, or, it just times out. It is literally waiting on hold. And on the flip side, we have asynchronous communication. This is non-blocking. Here, the request and the response are totally decoupled from each other. The client sends a request and almost instantly gets a little pat on the back, like a, yep, got it, we're on it. Then it's totally free to go do other work. The actual meaty response will show up later through a completely separate channel. Maybe a webhook pushes it to you, or your system has to check back in on the status later, which is something we call polling.
So when you put them side by side, the differences are pretty stark. For response time, sync is immediate. We're talking under 3 seconds usually. Async, it's delayed. It could be minutes or even hours. For the process type, sync is perfect for simple, quick jobs. Async is built for those messy, long-running workflows. But where it gets really interesting is error handling. With sync, if something goes wrong, you know about it right away. With async, you need totally separate systems to catch and handle failures that might pop up way after that first request was sent.
Okay. Theory is great, but let's see how this stuff actually works in the real world. We're going back to our $1 million purchase order to see how a really well-designed system uses both of these patterns to get a complex B2B transaction done right from start to finish. Okay, first things first. Before we even dream of shipping that $1 million order, we have to validate it. I mean, do we even have the items in stock? Is the customer's credit good? These are questions that demand an answer right now. There's no waiting around. And this is the perfect job for a synchronous call. It's an instant check. And here's what that looks like under the hood. Step 1, the client sends that validation request and just waits. Step 2, an API gateway passes it along. Step 3, the backend service does a quick check against the database for inventory or credit info. And finally, step 4, the answer, yes or no, comes all the way back. The key thing to see here is that the client is blocked, holding the line for this entire little dance. It's fast, for sure, but it ties up the whole connection.
All right, the order is validated. Awesome. But now the real work starts. This is not a simple database lookup anymore. We might need to coordinate with 3 different warehouses, schedule a freight carrier, update our big ERP system, and generate a bunch of invoices. This is a complex, multi-step process that could take minutes, not milliseconds. Trying to do all of that on one phone call? You would be a total disaster. This is a job for an asynchronous call.
Now look at how different this process is. The client sends the order to the API, but check out the response in step 2. It just says 202 accepted. That's not the final result. It's a promise. It's the system saying, got your request, I'll get to work on it. The client is now totally free to go do something else. Then, sometime later, once all that background processing is finished, the system sends a notification, a webhook, back to the client. the job is done, and nobody had to sit around and wait.
So, synchronous or asynchronous? The immediate phone call or the flexible email? Which one is actually better? Well, this is where a lot of people get tripped up. See, that's the wrong question to be asking. The secret to building really robust, modern B2B systems isn't about choosing one over the other. It's about knowing when and how to use them both together.
Yep, you heard that right. The most mature, most effective B2B architectures out there are hybrid. They don't try to hammer every problem with the same tool. Instead, they cleverly use the speed of synchronous calls for the things they're great at, and they lean on the resilience of asynchronous calls for everything else.
Let's see this hybrid flow in action, because it's really elegant. Step 1, a synchronous call gives you that instant validation. Yes, this order looks good. Step 2, the system immediately kicks off an asynchronous background job to handle all that complex fulfillment we talked about. And then in step 3, another synchronous response comes right back to the client, but not with the final result. It comes back with a job ID. This gives the client immediate feedback and a ticket number to track that long-running process. It is truly the best of both worlds.
So, how do you actually apply all this to your own projects? How do you decide? Let's walk through a super practical checklist you can use to figure out which pattern or which combination is right for your specific situation. We'll break it down into two parts: business needs and technical realities.
First, you got to think about the business. Does your partner's system or even a human user absolutely need an immediate answer before they can do their next thing? What does your service level agreement, your SLA, with that partner actually promise them? Are there any compliance rules that say a transaction has to be confirmed within a certain time frame? Answering these questions first will almost always point you in the right direction. Next, you've got to be realistic about your tech stack and your partner's tech. Are you depending on some slow external system that could easily cause a timeout on a synchronous call? What kind of volume are we talking about here? 1,000 transactions an hour? 1,000,000? And this one's huge. What can your partners actually handle? Can their system even receive a webhook? Or are they stuck having to constantly pull your system for updates? Your architecture has to work in the real world, not just on a whiteboard.
And all of this brings us to one last big question. As you're designing your systems, ask yourself this: are you building something that can only handle a simple one-time request? Or are you building a resilient, scalable architecture that's designed to react to business events, no matter how complex or time-consuming they become? Because, ultimately, that choice between sync, async, and hybrid is the choice between building for right now and building for the future.